Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. I am with Joe Walsh with Green Clean Maine, and we're here this afternoon. We're going to be talking about a live event that we're going to be having in Charleston here in September called the Maine Central Strategy Summit. Joe's going to be one of our speakers, and he's going to be talking about customer retention and lifetime value of a customer. And basically, how to create more value, more profit within your cleaning business. And we're going to have fun here for the next hour or so. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tom. I'm excited to be here, and I'm really excited for this event coming up in September. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It's been a minute since we've done one of these. I know that you were a regular on Smart Business Moves.
Yeah, somewhat, weren't we? And I think you mentioned the other day in the other live stream that we were COVID business buddies as well. That was quite a roller coaster ride.
We were on Zoom calls daily.
Daily Zoom calls. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not sure all the reasons why, but we wound up doing the professional house cleaning certification program. I guess we were, I don't know if we were bored, but it was like we were shut down for a while and didn't have anything else to do, right?
Yeah, it was a little scary being shut down for a little while. And I don't know how many people watching might know about my history with Tom and Liz and Smart Business Moves and Cleaning Business Foundations and things like that. But I was actually a student of your program back in, was that 2012, 2013 maybe?
Could be, could be. We've done foundations. Last time we did it was like 14, so it could have very easily been back that far. It was a while.
It was back when it was asynchronous. I think we were doing some remote learning, and this was when that was really novel. I mean, I remember it being like interesting that we were doing these calls, and it was over the
And that was
space.
before Zoom. I forget we were using like WebEx or Citrix or something.
Oh yeah, it was definitely pre-Zoom. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we go back forever, and your business and Liz's business are two that I visited back in. I got started in 2007. I think by 2010 or 2011, I had seen your business and Liz's business and actually traveled and visited them. And between the two, it just opened my eyes to, oh, this is what a house cleaning business can look like. I mean, I walked in, what do you have, 10,000 square feet there or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, the world has changed to the point where a lot of what we have here is more of a cleaning museum than it is anything else because
It's different.
everybody's remote now in 2025 and running the business off of phones. But
Yeah.
I remember that because we worked together, and I remember one of the significant projects that we worked on was changing your compensation system to an incentive-based program and your payroll to revenue. This was like part of your journey to how to build, more profit, create more profit in your
Right.
cleaning business. And you put a material amount of additional profit on your bottom line, actually created more revenue per hour for your cleaning, technicians too,
Yep.
all through, that process.
Yeah. And that was so if anybody wants to ever chat about pay, like how different ways you can pay your employees in this business, I've done all three major ways. I've paid by the hour, I've paid by the job hour, and I've paid by percentage. So I've done all three. We're still doing the percentage thing, by the way, but we're not here to talk about that. We're not here to talk about pay schemes. But it's just I'm always excited to be here and really enjoy chatting with you, Tom. And this event that we have coming up is really exciting because I just think it's different from a lot of things that we kind of see and that we're kind of offered in this industry. And when you reached out and we started brainstorming about it a little bit, I remember one of the things I said early on is whenever I go to anything, any kind of conference, I get the most out of just hearing from other business owners who are trying to do the same thing I do. We want to grow, we want to scale. I broke through $3 million in revenue. How do I get to 5? What do I need to do to get to 10? And just talking with other people who have been on that journey before, I always get so much out of that. And part of it is tactical, but also some of it is just commiserating in a way, so.
And I think the time is right too. I really wanted to do something that picks up on the theme that there's a lot of change. AI is changing everything, and it's going to be changing how we run our businesses in the months ahead, certainly the years ahead.
Mm.
We see professional management practices expanding within, a lot of the more successful businesses that we see in the industry. I mean, you're an example of that, and some of the techniques you've incorporated in your business that were not really heard of within the house cleaning vertical, 5 years ago. And there's professional money floating around now too, that you really haven't seen the consolidation that you've seen in a lot of the other home service verticals, but it's really not a matter if, it's a matter of when that's going to be happening. So you take all of those things and you roll it together. It's about looking forward, right? It's like planning for the future, and that's really what strategy is. And I really like speaking to the idea that as CEOs of our businesses, the most important thing on our job description is setting the strategic direction. There's a lot of things in your business that other people can do. Other people can own, but strategy is the one thing. If the CEO doesn't do it, nobody else will. It just doesn't happen. So that's really at the heart of what we're going to be doing in September. It's September 17 through 19. We're going to be doing it in Charleston at the Castle Keeper's office. And the format is going to be one where we've got 3 keynote speakers that own the morning. Jonathan Wisman is one of our keynote speakers. He is the CEO of a product called Who Hire, and it's a lot more than an applicant tracking system. It's uses AI to help select job applicants who have the greatest probability of being successful based on certain job descriptions. And he's a visionary and knows a lot about technology and at a high level.
I'm looking forward to meeting him. I haven't met him, and I've heard great things about him.
He's really cool. I've seen him at some trade shows before. He has a book called The Sales Boss, and it's a legit book. And I say that because it doesn't take much to write a book, really. But I mean, this is something that a lot of people buy off of Amazon, and it's useful. And I highly recommend it.
I'm writing that down. I'm writing that down because one of the things I need to work on for sure in our business is refining our sales process and that kind of a thing. So and we actually treat recruitment as sales. So it's interesting that his software product is a recruiting software.
There's a lot of crossover, isn't it? It's the same,
absolutely.
Same exercise.
Yeah.
And the Sales Boss is about how to build and manage a sales team. And at some point when we're not to the point, a lot of businesses aren't to the point where they actually think about sales teams, but it's happening. I know some businesses that actually do. John Zandowski is a very dynamic individual as well. I've never heard him.
Calls with him, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, you've met with him.
Oh yeah, he's got a proposal out to me, and he doesn't know it yet, but he's going to be my fractional CFO and bookkeeper soon. Okay. So you heard it here first on this Facebook Live event that Green Clean Maine will be engaging weekly accounting. So he just
Tell us a little bit about John.
Maybe he's watching. John's a really interesting guy. He is an engineer by training. I don't remember what kind of engineer. You probably remember that better than me.
Off the top of my head, I don't. But
Yeah, he
he's
told me, but I
definitely an
can't
engineer.
remember. So following John, first of all, and this is not required to do what he does, but he has an incredible amount of. I'm like a spreadsheet nerd, and his game with Google Sheets just blows me out of the water, and it's really incredible what this guy can do on the fly. And Tom, you are also incredible in spreadsheets as well, but I'm sorry to say, John probably has you beat.
No, John plays another game. He's a whole nother level.
But that's not what he does. He doesn't do Google Sheets. So he's got this incredible system that I've been really impressed with. I met him at just the right time, and Matt Ricketts actually introduced me to John, and I have been, for the first time in the history of my business, having to really up my marketing spend. And we'll get into this a little bit later in the call, but I haven't had to spend a lot on marketing because I have just been able to grow through customer retention and word of mouth past $3 million, which I'm really proud of that. But I have a hole when it comes to marketing. So anyway, I'm marketing knowledge. So I'm plowing all this money into marketing, and I really feel like I'm grappling around blind, not understanding which channels are working and where the money's ending up and all that. And John comes along right at the right time, and that's a huge part of what he does. He helps you see where your channels are saturated and where to focus your marketing spend, but also helps you understand your business on a week-to-week basis in actionable financial statements that are actually usable and easy to read on a day-to-day basis. You're not looking at the P&L as such on a monthly basis anymore. So really excited to get going with them on that.
And a lot of us look at bookkeeping and the accounting side as kind of like a necessary evil, something that we have to do, but really don't see the value in it from a business management standpoint. And what John is doing is basically turning it into a tool that can make you more profitable. So
because I don't know any bookkeepers, Tom, that tie your Google Analytics and your Google Ads and your CRMs and everything into your financials, so you sort of have visibility. And I've got a Frankenstein set of spreadsheets that kind of attempt to do that, but it's definitely clunky. And what he's created is impressive. So yeah, and he's a dynamic guy, moves real fast, which I love. Sort of.
yeah. It's kind of like listening to an audible book on like 1.7.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that. Yeah.
But definitely get your money's worth there.
Yep.
He's good, and we all know Matt, right?
Yep. Matt Ricketts. Matt and I talk, fairly regularly. We have been doing since the pandemic, actually, have been doing these pretty much quarterly calls. Every 3 or 4 months we get together. We are open book with each other, just sort of share what's going on, do some benchmarking, some friendly competition. Matt's really blown it out of the water on several different aspects. And I'm so glad that he's keynoting this. I think he's really got a vision for growth for Better Life Maids that is, it's just inspiring for me anyway. And I think it'll be inspiring for a lot of people just to kind of see what's possible. It makes me think of Dan Sullivan has this book. What is it? 10x is easier than 2x or something. I'm paraphrasing. Is that what it's the title?
Yeah, I think you're in the ballpark.
Yeah, something like that. And that kind of encompasses, Matt's really kind of taken that thinking and he's really living it. So, the idea is that if you think about, I'm going to grow my business, I'm going to double the size of my business. It's almost harder to do that than if you say, I'm going to 10x the size of my business. Because when you say you're going to 10x it, you have to completely think differently about everything you're doing. And I when I first heard that, I was actually a student of Strategic Coach, Dan Sullivan's program. It's a great program, but I was sort of like, that's, I don't know about that. That seems kind of, I don't know if I believe that. But I've actually found it to be true, because since I set a goal of getting my business to 10 million in revenue, I've started to think about things differently. It's almost freeing, So, yeah.
So our three keynote speakers in the morning sessions, Jonathan Wisman is kind of handling the whole human capital side of it. John Zandowski is handling the more objective, the finance side of this, and the price cost. I don't say bookkeeping, but using the whole accounting framework as a strategic advantage. And Matt's tying all of that together, going from when we talked about this last week, after COVID, he wasn't much above $1 million a year in revenue, and he's at 5 and beyond now, and he's on his way to 10 as well. Common theme, but over through all of them is it's strategic. And what I mean by strategic, it's about forward thinking. Where are we going to be 6 months from now, a year from now, 3 years from now? Where are management practices and technology, AI in particular, additional monies coming into industry? How is that going to be changing all the competitive forces? What are the risks and what are the opportunities? And there's tremendous opportunity in all of this. So there's nothing that, well, I'll say there's nothing, but these morning sessions aren't designed to give you like hacks to go back and implement Monday. This is really more forward thinking.
Right. It's more to get everybody thinking bigger. And I find personally, I find that stuff really motivating. I like to see what's possible. I find that motivating.
But Joe, where you helped frame up how we wanted to approach the strategy summit was, let's carve out some time to take the strategy that we're going to be speaking to, and let's add some tactical components to it.
Yep.
And that's what I think makes this event, one of the things that I think makes this event unique. And that's what we've done. So in the afternoon for those 3 days, we're going to have presenters, all of them hands-on operators of some of the best house cleaning businesses that you're going to find in the United States, speaking to specific topics that arguably will give you a lot of nuggets that you can take back and implement on Monday, but not random stuff tying into the strategic topics that we talk about in the morning.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward. So Don and Chris, I have personally spent some time with at other Made Central events and really enjoy speaking with both of them. And Gaja and Pete and Greg, I've met Gaja before, but I haven't seen her in years. I'm really looking forward to hearing from her. And Pete and Greg are two more people that I feel like we otherwise wouldn't be hearing from. So I just think it's really great what we're pulling together here in terms of the voices that we're hearing from, and all operators, people really doing interesting things.
Gosha, I mean, all of these people have multi-million-dollar house cleaning businesses. I did a workshop with Gosha last October, I believe it was, and she was showing financial statements. She was sharing this, and over 20% growth year after year after year after year, and doing that consistently.
Yeah.
It says a lot easier than it does. Okay.
Yeah, and it does. It's really
she's a tremendous operator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pete Glavis is the largest franchisee in not only the May Brigade, brand. I would argue. Let me tell a story. I reached out to Pete and asked him to present. And he's like, "Well, what do you want me to talk about?" And it's like, I've known Pete for over 20 years. Pete had a $6 million house cleaning business 20 years ago. and he's just moved forward at that point. It's like, Pete, by my calculations, there's nobody in the industry that's cleaned more homes than you have. And thought for a second and he goes, yeah, you're probably right. And it's like, there's a story in there somewhere. Come talk. So this
Right.
is something that he does on a regular basis, but it's going to be a treat.
But that's kind of why I like it, though. It's not something that a lot of us do on a regular basis. I find that really interesting. How do you get to $6 million before, 20 years ago? That seems impossible to me. I'm just trying to think of how you would cobble that together with spreadsheets and
And
like,
this was back, and this was back where you could count on two hands the number of companies that were doing over 1 million.
right, right. So that's gonna be fun. Yeah,
You remember the TV series Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man?
I
That's
never saw
before your
that.
time. That was before your time. Google it.
Okay.
Anyway, that was our news repeat.
Yeah.
You met Don
Yeah,
last
Don's a
September,
great
right?
guy and doing really interesting things, and really is a wealth of knowledge about acquiring other cleaning services, which I'm coming to realize is more and more a logical path to growth. Once you get past a certain size, it starts to make a lot more sense to look at acquiring other cleaning businesses. I'm really looking forward to that one. That's what he does. Again, he's doing it actively right now, which is really interesting.
And there's a convergence where, the technology, and again, AI in particular, is going to make that more and more attainable, and being able to do that and still maintain a high level of performance,
Mm-hmm.
and doing it in a way where the synergies and economies of scale and lowering your operating cost, you know, scaling businesses that way with where the technology is quickly going to be makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You ever meet Greg?
Never met him. I just know his cars with the hands on top. It's something that sticks out in my mind. I saw those pictures of those cars at an ARCSI conference years ago, and it's stuck in my mind ever since. That's powerful branding. Is what that is.
Yeah. Greg is the founder of More Hands in Texas. They've got branches all over the state of Texas, and More Hands was his brainchild. And he's 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 a dynamic individual as well. You have to be to achieve the success and scale that he has.
Yeah.
And he's not the type of person who, we don't see him at like ARCSI events and stuff like that. So this is going to be a tremendous treat as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, looking forward to hearing from him. And then Chris, of course, you know, uh, I just got to tell a quick story about Chris. This is an example of the type of spontaneous, I don't know if you want to call it, maybe more organic nuggets you can take away from something like this. But the last time, no, it wasn't the last time, in September's Made Central Live event, so last fall, it was September or October, I went to the Made Central Live event. And then at one point, Chris and Matt and a couple of others of us just ended up congregating because we had stepped out to grab a coffee or something. We ended up congregating outside of Kyle's office in your building there and just chit-chatting. And we really got to talking about really significant stuff. And one of the things we were talking about is concern about work-life balance when you're trying to 10x your business. And, it's always been something I'm conscious of and really important to me. And, how do I maintain some semblance of work-life balance when I'm pushing for this huge growth? And, Chris said something that stuck with me. And he just said that somebody had told him that life comes in seasons, and that, there'll be seasons that are busier and that you have to sacrifice other things. And then there'll be other seasons where it'll be lighter and you'll be able to do more of the things you love doing outside of, your professional life. And that is just an example of how I didn't go to the Made Central conference thinking that I was going to get that type of life advice, but
Mhm.
it's just, you just never know what you're going to hear and what's going to stick with you. So I just thought that was really interesting.
And I guess it depends where you live too. So there's some places that there's, you know, it's
What's
hot
the
all the time,
season?
right?
People say, what's the season? I live in Maine, so the seasons are pretty pronounced. So,
Hey, Sarah. Sarah jumps in and is
oh,
talking
hey,
about
Sarah.
her third office. It was a whole lot easier in her first. And I
Yeah.
think that's going to become more common. Again, the technology, just everybody's awareness of how to better leverage professional management, what that means to the return on human capital and extending lifetime value of customers. Everything, everything is kind of converging towards that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sarah, I would love to chat with you a little bit more about your multiple offices. It's the direction that we're going to end up going in over here. So just I gotta rip the Band-Aid off at some point to make it happen.
You know, September is the last piece of inspiration necessary to turn that into action.
Yeah. I mean, we're still growing 20% a year in our single location, but I can see the benefit of expanding geographically with multiple offices for sure.
At some point, because you're up there in Portland, and it's not the largest metropolitan area in the country,
No, I mean the metro is only 250,000.
right?
So not that big. I mean, relatively wealthy, though. I think that helps, but still not that big.
So what are you going to be talking about at the Strategy Summit?
I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite things to talk about, which is customer retention. So we've been at a 97% monthly customer retention rate. A lot of people talk about it in terms of churn rate. So, more in the negative sense. So, put another way, we lose about 2.9% of our customers every month. Been maintaining 3% churn rate or better for as long as I can remember now. And it's always been something that's super important to me. And we'll talk a little bit more about why I think it's important. But I've come to really look at this metric as the primary driver of customer lifetime value, and that's something that we're going to be talking about because strategically, customer lifetime value matters so much for businesses like ours. It's all about that subscribing customer and that repeat business, so you don't have to go out and kill what you eat every day. So that's
And that you know 3% monthly churn rate. If you look at that, it's like 3%, 5%. They're all 6%. They're all low numbers, right? Does it really matter? And I haven't seen your presentation. I suspect there's some math in here somewhere that might give us some perspective as to what the difference between 3 and 6% is on a monthly loss rate.
Yeah, it definitely matters, and it's something, like I said, that I love to talk about. I actually had a lot of fun putting this together um, because I know this intuitively that it's important, but when you sit down to actually put together the presentation, you're reminded of the numbers, and it matters more as you grow. So, I just put together kind of a quick outline of some of the stuff I'll be talking about in September, and I'm really excited for this session. So, why does it matter? It's customer lifetime value is driven primarily by customer retention, and we'll look at some numbers on that in a minute. Stacking customer counts. So as you add new customers, you don't have to add as many each month because you're not losing as many. So you end up growing. I'll show some numbers on that. Reduced overhead, increased employee satisfaction. I love talking about that. Yeah, increased customer retention ties so much into employee satisfaction. And I'll talk more about why. A more stable business is easier to own, and we'll get more into that too. It's also a competitive advantage. A lot of people say they provide great service, but if you actually are, because consumers figure it out. And finally, it's the right thing to do. So that's just, we'll talk a little bit about it. Here's that customer lifetime value. So at the event in September, I'm going to dig into these numbers a little bit more deeply to see how this actually works. And Made Central has a really cool tool that I'll utilize in the presentation to kind of look at a few different scenarios. And the people who are there can come with their actual, average cleanings per home per month, average, bill rate, which means, the average amount that your customer is paying each time you go. And we can do our own numbers on this. But this is just for me. Assuming a 45% payroll percent to sales at a 5% customer churn rate per month, the customer lifetime value is $4,740. And this is gross profit that a customer brings in over a lifetime. But at 2.9%, which is ours, it goes up to about $8,200.
So when you say gross profit, what do you mean?
Gross profit is the profit that you take from that customer, that you make off that customer after you've paid your frontline staff. And I'm using payroll percent to sales as a stand-in for kind of frontline payroll costs, including PTO and training and even like credit card processing. If you put that in there and say, okay, every new customer we add, you're going to incur 45 to 50% expense just to deliver the service. But everything after that falls to the bottom line because your overhead stays the same, right? For every new customer.
So gross profits, what's left over after you pay the cleaning technicians, basically.
Yeah.
Kind of a simplified way of looking at it. So you still have to pay rent and all the other stuff that you have to pay. But once you do all of that, that gross profit basically goes straight to the bottom line.
That's right. So it's incredibly powerful to see your gross profit not quite double, but increase substantially, almost double, by going from 5% to 3%. So it's like those 2% don't sound like a lot, but it actually is.
So the lower you make that churn rate, the bigger that lifetime value is, the quicker the customers stack, the sooner you pay off all of that overhead expense, and the sooner all those dollars start tumbling down into this thing called profit.
That's right. That's exactly it, man. That's the power of it. And I'm glad you talked about stacking customer counts because I'm assuming, so I'm just taking a quick example, high level example. And just for the record, this is about what I'm doing in terms of quotes per month, roughly. So about 130 quotes per month, about a 30% close rate. Our close rate's a little higher than that, but I'm just sort of trying to throw round numbers out there. So that would net you 39 new customers a month. So at a 5% close rate, by the way, I'm assuming 750 customers to start. I should have said that because that's about where we are. So I'm just trying to use real world numbers here. If I had a 5% churn rate, I'd only grow by 12 customers in the next 12 months, but at a 2.9% churn rate, I grow by 204 recurring customers in the next 12 months because of that stacking. So it's really powerful. Marketing spend is another thing. So going from 5% to 2.9%, I'd say $48,000. That's pure profit. I'm assuming too a $250 customer acquisition cost. That is sort of a made up number. It's fairly realistic. Could be lower. It could be higher. Just a number to throw out there. But that's a 1% net margin. So when you are a $5 million business, 1% of your net margin is a much bigger number than when you're a $500,000 business, right? I mean, I think that's just sort of some of the ways we're starting to think now as our businesses grow.
So this is pretty cool. You want to go back one slide? Just kind of a little math game. if you take your 39 added, recurring customers a month and divide it by the churn rate, that gives you your steady state recurring customers. Basically, that's the number that you flatline at.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of shows like a net of one. If you take 39 divided by 0.05, it's going to take you something close to 750. I don't know, probably 770 something, maybe 780. So
Wow.
the numbers all work.
That's really cool. That's a cool cocktail napkin math exercise you can do to kind of figure
But
it
you
out.
take that 39 and divide it by 0.029, that is a heck of a lot larger number.
Mm. And it's interesting because we've taken to looking at this, and I'll talk about this in September, on an annual basis rather than monthly, because it just feels more significant to people. So, a 5% churn rate, you've got to take 5 and multiply it by 12 to get your annual churn rate. And then when you talk about going from 5% to 3%, the difference is a lot bigger. You're going from, I don't know, roughly, I haven't done the math on that right off the top of my head, but
You take 39 divided by 0.029, the number goes up to like 1,345. That's
right.
almost twice. That's not quite, but it's almost twice as big, which kind of makes sense because the churn rate is almost half.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting into this in more detail, but the way that we look at that is we take 2.9 and multiply it by 12, and that gets you a 34.8% annual churn rate, and which, to look at it another way, it's a 65% customer retention rate. So we would like that to be more like 75%. So if you're trying to motivate your team, to me, telling them to get from 2.9 to 2.6 isn't as motivating as let's get from 65% retention to 75% retention.
Yeah.
So some of this too is about how we motivate our teams to kind of want to help with that. There's some stuff that's harder to quantify. Schedule consistency, I'll talk a lot more about that. Employee satisfaction, employee pride in their work, and it's just the right thing to do. There's just a lot of reasons that customer retention matters. And I just wanted to share real quick our whole story with customer retention. We were talking about this a little bit before the call, Tom, about how I arrived at focusing on this so much, but I was in a CEO group for quite a few years called Vistage. And Tom, you're currently in the Vistage group, as I understand it, as well right now.
Been for a long time, yeah.
Long time. And I remember it's a CEO group, and you go in and you do issue processing. And I remember I went in one day and the whole group of CEOs around the table help you solve this problem in your business. And my thing was, and this is like back in 2016, I go in and, I just said, I need an exit strategy because I'm fed up and I'm selling this thing. And so we spent 2 hours processing everything that was going on in the business. And when I left that session, the message I got was that you need to stabilize your business first. I had an incredible amount of employee turnover, an incredible amount of customer turnover, an incredibly high absentee rate. And so the business just felt super chaotic. And I'm sure that a lot of people watching this can relate to that feeling of it just feeling super chaotic with the call outs and the, turnover and employees quitting without notice and, constantly losing customers, that whole churn. It's stressful, right? So I kind of came to focusing on this as something that was important from that. And it was about customer retention and employee retention, and landed a lot on consistency and, keeping everything consistent. And so that's kind of became a big focus of mine. And you'll see here, like I noted, a stable business equals a better lifestyle and a better work-life balance, which has always been something super important to me. So I always
we
tell
talk
them,
about in the Maine Central, we talk about, the three stakeholders, the team members, the customers, and, the company itself. And what you're talking about here, when you stabilize the business, that translates into profit, and that translates into a win for all stakeholders.
It does. It does. And I passed the $3 million point with spending less than 1% on marketing. Um, I I don't know that I ever spent more than 1% in any given year. Maybe I did at one point, but it was always right around 1%. Because I always told my team that this service should sell itself. So I'm not spending any money on marketing. That changes now. You do reach that point, like we were talking about, where what you reach a stasis because you're only generating so many leads. So now I've got to change that. But I'll talk a little bit about kind of the superlatives that this focus on customer retention generates. And I love seeing things like they're the best we've ever known. The customer service is the best I've encountered anywhere. And these are all relatively recent reviews. I went back like 3 months in our review queue to kind of look for some highlights. And it's what we expect to be getting, and our team knows that. So we share these reviews with new staff. The best cleaning experience I've ever had. House is cleaner than we ever imagined. I love those kind of raving superlatives. It just makes me happy. And who doesn't love to work at a place where this is the kind of feedback you're getting? So we love that. And then I want to talk about how we do it. And, we hear a lot about culture, and it really is the most important thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean like, confetti and awards and like all that kind of stuff. That's part of it, but it is just sort of, how do you act on a day-to-day basis? It's not any one technology, not any one tool. There's not some big secret, and I see people making that mistake, and I've made that mistake before, especially earlier in my time operating this business, where you hear somebody's idea and you think, that's it, that's what I need. If I just have that idea, it'll solve all my problems, and it just doesn't work that way. It's just more about executing things consistently every day. So what I really want to share is, in September, is what's worked for us. And, there's what's worked for us might not be what works for everybody else, but I know there's going to be value in there because it's working and has been for quite some time. So we'll talk about our cleaning process. This is something I've heard this several times in the past few years. Like, I don't really care how you clean, or, how we clean doesn't matter. It's more about, selling, or more about, these other aspects. And I push back on that a little bit. I think how you clean does matter, and the process that you set your team up with does matter. So we have the Green Clean Maine method, 217 pages and 52,700 words of, cleaning know-how. And we update it periodically through an established process. And I'm still involved in that. So I don't actually do the work of creating, and updating the content, but I always oversee the process, and I'm cued into it, because how we clean a home is a part of our service delivery. It's part of our strategy. And so it does matter. And it's definitely something we've developed in-house. We'll talk about that. Training. We invest heavily in this. It's highly structured. And again, we have a process in place to always be updating it. So that's really important. Culture of service. So, something else I've heard batted around is that, in cleaning business circles, is that we're a sales organization, or, we're a training organization. And I think every business needs to have a sales aspect. But number one, in my view, we are a service organization. And so service first. We definitely need to sell, and we definitely need to market, and we definitely need to train. And the training is a really important part of what we do, but it's service first. And that's really where our focus is. And one of the ways that we push that is with paid time off to volunteer, which seems like it's just this like nice feel good thing that we do, but it's actually strategic because it really gets people to think about service and what service means. And it's also incredible team building. So we do quite a bit of this. These are some photos from our projects that we've done this year. And we'll be talking about that kind of stuff. Frequent public praise is important. So every 5-star review, we get shout outs. We're really active in Slack. Public KPIs is really important too. So this is just a photo of the board we have up in our team room. Everybody sees it. Everybody's name is up there. And that is everybody's quality score on Made Central. And Made Central, by the way, makes this possible. Before Made Central, people couldn't have visibility into their overall satisfaction like this in this way. And this
looks like Victoria's having a bad week.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, it's sort of one of those things where everybody sees it, and it's more of a culture of how can we get you above the line? How can we get you above? And it's really powerful. Look at how many people have perfect scores. How many people are in the 100% range, so just really love that. And tied into that is this idea of quality assurance through coaching. So we don't do quality assurance per se. We don't have someone going around just randomly checking jobs. It's really done through employee and customer feedback. And there's a lot of coaching. So, if you're down in the 94 range, you're going to be getting visits from a field supervisor, right? Until you get yourself up to 98, which is where we want to be, right? And even if you're in 96, 97, you're going to be seeing more supervision than if you're 98 plus. But it's all about coaching. Schedule consistency. Remember this one, Tom?
You're the father of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
We spent a lot of time talking about the benefits of this. These are the COVID discussions. We could probably write a book about the ideas, the concepts, the intellectual property that was developed during COVID. And you did a lot of work to help me and a lot of other people understand that consistency is kind of the opposite of the chaos that you were talking about, and it's bigger than just the frustrations it creates in your life. It's the frustrations it creates for your team members and your customers. When they're frustrated, they're both looking for a different company. You figure that out long before anybody else did.
And I remember before we settled on this as being important, the schedule consistency idea, we felt, I don't know if I guess fear. Yeah, we felt fear that if customers got to know employees too well, they would leave. Like, the customer and the employee would go outside of the business, and we'd lose customers and employees if we allowed the relationship to develop too much,
or if somebody, calls out sick, it's like, well, I don't want to lose that revenue that person was going to do. So we're going to move a dozen jobs around just to get everything done today.
Right. So we just realized, and this happened during COVID, because during COVID, in some ways, we had time to kind of look at things we didn't have time to do before. And for years, employees have been telling us that their schedule wasn't consistent enough. I have why can't I just have the same, customers every time? But before COVID, we were teams, and it's much harder to execute in teams. Those people on the call who run teams will understand that. It's harder when you're running teams to keep things consistent, in my experience. We switched to solos during COVID, and then we started to say, wait a minute, it seems like it should be easier to do this now. And I dug in myself and uncovered all kinds of stuff and how we were scheduling that made no sense. It had kind of like turned into a kind of a mess. And went in and developed a really strict scheduling protocol that put familiarity with the cleaning as the number one decision. Is this person familiar with the cleaning? That always comes first. And we found that we were always focused on drive time. So periodically we'd redo the whole schedule to make drive time, to save 5 minutes here and 3 minutes there. It's like, and we found that was counterproductive because it was removing people from houses they were familiar with. And the number one driver of overall efficiency is actually familiarity with the home, not drive time, within limits. So we do consider drive time, but we more have a tolerance. So you're not aiming for the tightest possible drive time. You're just saying it can't be more than X. So there's give and take with drive time. And then client schedule preferences come last, actually, which some people find surprising, some people might not. But we listen to what the client asks for, but we more frame it as, we have an opening in your area on this day, sort of a thing. It's about how you talk about it with customers. Because we used to let the customers choose, when would you like us to come? And then you kind of like bend everything around that, but that doesn't work out.
I hear what you're asking for, but this is what you really want.
Right. Yeah, believe me. So, but the scheduling protocol is part of how we've achieved scheduling consistency, and that is actually a huge part of it. And I'll share more about the details of that protocol in September and kind of how we actually operate with that protocol. But something else that really drives our ability to be consistent with the schedule is our low absentee rate. And this is something that I'm really proud of. We work really hard on this. This is a number pulled from Made Central, absentee rate per day of 5%. We define this a little bit differently. I don't want to get too much into the weeds with it, but I look at the absentee rate as a KPI of overall business stability. And this comes back from that 2016 conversation about stability, where we count it as an unplanned absence if an employee quits without notice, because they should have given 2 weeks, right? So whenever an employee quits without notice, that causes a lot of upheaval in the schedule. So for our own internal tracking, we actually count those as unplanned absences, which might sound crazy, but we are able to actually keep it under 6%, including that, which we really work hard on. So we have, I'll give you an example. I have 46 field staff, I think, right now. And last week, in 5 days, we had 1 call out.
Wow. But that's culture, right? And that's setting expectation. And that's part of where the win-win comes into play, because your technicians want consistency as much as your customers, right?
Yes.
And
that's exactly it.
If your customers like help by not skipping jobs and are agreeable to take a schedule that allows you to maintain a high level of consistency, your technicians buy in on the idea that I need to come to work on the days that I'm scheduled to come to work. I mean, I've seen other people do this. You figured it out, but I've seen a number of other people adopt this, and you're really selling it to both your technicians and your customers, and
Right.
you get them to buy in on that. It's almost like a dance. They're both playing the same game.
Yeah. And you do, there are some problems that it can create, or a challenge that to be overcome. For example, it's so tempting when you see 2 hours on the end of 3 or 4 people's days to combine that and reassign some regular cleaning so you can get another deep cleaning in there, to more fully utilize the labor hours available. But we don't do that. So we never ever reassign a cleaning. We used to do this all the time. We used to just make room on the schedule so we could shove in another cleaning, right? You're maximizing your revenue that day, but what you're giving up, we found, is the long-term value. So it's like short-term gain, but long-term pain kind of thing.
The amount of money that you put in the bank that day was more, but the amount of money you're going to put in the bank over the course of the year is less.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's been our experience and how that. And then, of course, so again, talking about how do we keep this long-term relationship with customers. Personal touches. I know a lot of us leave notes. It's important, and we also do cards when animals pass away, flowers when a family member is sick, or if there's a death in the family, and personal contact from the office when a cleaner leaves. And I'll just say that, except for the notes, none of the rest of this stuff was my idea. This just started happening organically. And I found that the best kind of personal touches that the customers get come from the just hiring people who take caring seriously, if that makes sense, just sort of natural to them to care that a dog died. And, people will be in their supervisor's office shedding tears in the morning because a pet passed away, and we feel as close to the pet as anybody else in the family. So these are just sort of natural outgrowths of, this is a good transition I set myself up for there, of hiring helpful, warm, and engaged people. So I took this quote from a customer who left an online review in the last month, but she said, there is such a positive presence in my home, and that's important. So whenever we're interviewing somebody, it's always thinking, do I get a good feeling from this person? Or as some of my Gen Z employees like saying, what are the vibes? Am I getting good vibes from this person? And that's super important. So definitely something that we have to look for. And I'll just wrap up by saying that clients are family, and we don't necessarily frame it as clients or family when we're training new employees, but it sounds corny, but it's true. And we do talk with all new staff about how we see people through so many milestones: birth, aging, sickness, death, marriage, divorce, graduations, et cetera, et cetera. And by thinking of we are becoming a part of the client's family, and that means a lot to the people that work in this business. And it's why we're doing residential and not commercial. There's that personal relationship aspect that you've got to have people on your team that care about that are motivated by that. So that's another aspect of the customer retention, and one of the reasons I love knowing that our customers stay with us for so long.
Yeah. So this is kind of an overview of one of the many sessions we're going to be having at the Strategy Summit. We're pushing on the top of the hour here, so I'm going to go ahead and.
Oh, I didn't even notice the time.
Yep. It flies. I'm dropping the link again to the sign up page. It's madecentral.academy if you're interested. We've got some tickets left for the live event. That's going to be selling out. We have limited space for that. We capped that at 35. But we're also going to be live streaming it, so nobody has to miss the event. Being there in person, if you have the opportunity, is how you get the maximum value, though. So with that, go ahead, Joe.
Well, I just want to say, being there in person, if you can do it, it's extremely powerful. It's harder to get those sort of organic moments of inspiration and wisdom when you're not able to attend personally. So attend virtually is great if that's your only option, but if there's any way to make it happen, I strongly encourage personal attendance.
As always, Joe, you make this fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing you in September.
We're going to go ahead and call this a wrap then, and we will see you a little further down the road. Take care.
Okay. Sounds good. Bye.